WFLA Now will begin momentarily. WFLA Now will begin momentarily. Breaking news on WFLA Now. Here's JV Buno.
The lawyer for Gabby Petito's family drops a bombshell allegation on the inner correspondence within the Laundrie family between mother and son, claiming Roberta Laundrie offered a shovel to help her son Brian Laundrie bury Gabby Petito's body. However, the Laundries, they're firing back tonight through their attorney, warning, be careful of what you believe. Good evening to you folks. JB here with you live on WFLA Now. We are back on live stream this evening, this Friday, December 30th, 2022. Of course, we're about to close out the year 2022, and this live stream pertaining to a story that still so many of you continue to follow, a story that we began this year talking so much about. Gabby Petito, Brian Laundrie, and now a new allegation coming from Gabby Petito's parents, Florida lawyer, Pat Reilly. And we're going to go through this here, but want to let you know that we're hearing from Stephen Bertolino tonight, the attorney representing Brian Laundrie's parents as far as in a New York capacity. Matthew Luca, the attorney now representing them in the state of Florida, and pertaining to this lawsuit, the lawsuit that has been filed on behalf of Gabby Petito's parents against Brian Laundrie's parents, claiming intentional infliction of emotional distress. There are several key variables between the two families when it comes down to this lawsuit and the allegation that Brian Laundrie's parents were aware of Gabby's murder and chose to do nothing and chose not to tell the Petitos and the Schmidts where Gabby's body was located and what in fact had happened. Again, the allegation that they knew soon thereafter the murder had occurred that Brian had murdered Gabby. That is, of course, the allegation really at the core and the center of the lawsuit. We're now over these many months, and we've done many live streams over these many months, learning little nuggets of information. And one nugget that was really a mystery, if you will, is pertaining to this letter that existed between Roberta Laundrie and Brian Laundrie, her son. And we have it confirmed from both sides that this letter does in fact exist, that it is a letter that Brian received from her, or it was a letter that Roberta Laundrie wrote to her son, Brian Laundrie, and the contents of which we were told by Pat Reilly, the attorney for Gabby Petito's parents, the contents of this letter would be shock and awe, would reveal something about the Laundries that, again, is reason for the lawsuit being filed against the Laundries and why Joe Petito and Nicole Schmidt aren't just letting this fade into non-existence, why they continue to proceed against Brian Laundrie's parents. Well, this letter that exists between Brian Laundrie and Roberta Laundrie, we're starting to learn the contents of this letter, or are we? We're going to get more into that here over the course of this live stream. But I'm going to read this letter, or at least a portion of this letter. This is a letter from Pat Reilly. Pat Reilly is the attorney representing Gabby Petito's family. And it's a letter written to Matthew Luca, the Florida attorney for the Laundries. And it talks about the documents that exist at the center of this case and a motion to bring these documents to light. I'm going to read as follows. This is from December 5th of this year, so just about 3 weeks ago. Dear Mr. Luca, this letter is to follow up with you regarding the following outstanding discovery responses in the above reference matter. While your clients initially objected to the following requests for production, I believe in light of Judge Carroll's ruling on the defendant's motion to dismiss the plaintiff's amended complaint and his recent ruling on the defendant's motion for protective order, there is no limitation on these discovery requests, and thereby your client's objections are not well-founded. What is at the center of this, that's the end of the first paragraph, at the center of this are the documents that the FBI released in the aftermath and really at the conclusion of their investigation earlier this year. The attorneys for both sides met with the FBI earlier this year, I believe the month was June, and received several items that had been collected over the course of the investigation. That includes the letter, the confession letter. That is, on the right side of your screen there, the confession that Brian Laundrie wrote, detailing exactly what happened in his final moments with Gabby Petito, and really detailing the reason for the self-inflicted gunshot wound that would claim his life, the reason for his suicide. Another letter, though, that was uncovered that day, or at least received by the Laundrie family, is this letter that we reported on earlier this year from June. It was a letter that was allegedly encased in an envelope that read, "Burn after you read." Now, this, of course, was something that the internet was quite fired up about at the time, and it's hard not to blame people for not wanting information about this story and wanting the answers and the truth once and for all. But when you hear about a letter that is encased in an envelope that says "burn after you read," of course you're going to get a lot of people's attention. But the question I asked to Pat Reilly at the time was, what is inside this letter? What is in this letter? What is so important in this letter between Roberta Laundrie given to her son Brian Laundrie that you would write on the cover and really the envelope of that letter, "Burn after you read"? At the time, Pat Reilly was coy and he did not want to divulge the contents of that letter. However, the contents of that letter, according to Reilly, have now been uncovered in a court filing, the court filing that I began reading to you about the discovery of these, or the seeking of the discovery of these documents and the discovery process for these documents coming to light in advance of the depositions, in advance of this lawsuit between Gabby Petito's family and Brian Laundrie's family. I will skip ahead to a later on paragraph in this letter. Again, this is Pat Reilly, the attorney for the Petitos, writing to Matthew Luca there on the right side of your screen for Brian Laundrie's family, Chris and Roberta Laundrie. And I'll read this as follows. Request number 16 is certainly relevant because, again, it goes to the issue of knowledge on the part of your clients of Gabby's passing and the location of her body. This request certainly would also include the note that Roberta Laundrie wrote to Brian Laundrie, which she offered to bring a shovel to help bury the body. This note was released to the custody of Mr. Bertolino on Friday, June 24th, 2022 by the FBI. This letter is sent in a good faith effort to resolve this continuing discovery dispute. If I do not hear from you within 10 days from the date of this letter that you will provide the documents response to the request for the production of documents, I will file a motion to compel and set this matter for hearing. Sincerely, Pat Reilly. Now, this motion that he references at the end of this letter, that is already underway. And so the production of documents motion will be heard in Sarasota County Court in front of Judge Hunter W. Carroll on March 13th at 11 a.m. That is a date that is circled on our calendars. And really at the center of this is the discovery process for the documents. And this document that we are really honed in on this live stream is the document, the "Burn After You Read" letter between Roberta Laundrie and Brian Laundrie. I know this is a lot to follow for folks that have been following this story for the last year plus. You're probably able to follow along. I will try to slow things down for those of you who have just maybe you're coming back to this story for the first time since it really became, of course, a massive ordeal for people across the country and around the world about a year ago. So let's go into the responses that we have tonight. Now, I have reached out to Pat Reilly for more context because he and I have had conversations about the contents of this "Burn After You Read" letter. and he has not divulged. But now we're getting this through court filings. So I have not heard from him, but I have heard from Steve Bertolino, who might be watching this live stream right now. Steve Bertolino, the Islip, New York attorney representing the Laundrie scene there on the right side of your screen. And of course, I reached out to him as soon as I found this court filing, and I wanted some more details from him pertaining to this letter. And so I wrote to him, seeking comment in essence, and he responded, Attorney Reilly and his clients are entitled to allege what they want in court filings, but their allegations are not based in fact, but on conjecture only. The letter in question was written prior to Brian and Gabby leaving Florida and has nothing to do with this case. Attorney Reilly is trying to further sensationalize this tragedy to bolster his case by taking unrelated comments out of context. Now, Bertolino and I had several text messages, and we'll go through those text messages here in just a moment. But the big thing I want to point out is that Stephen Bertolino, the attorney for the Laundries, is claiming that this letter, he's not denying the letter's existence. In fact, in a later text, he would confirm its existence and say that the contents are between mother and son, Roberta and Brian Laundrie. However, as far as the contents of this letter, Pat Reilly is claiming that this is a letter about shovels and the burying of a body. And Bertolino is claiming that the letter in question was written prior to Brian and Gabby leaving Florida. So why a letter would exist from mother to son, talking about a shovel and talking about the burying of a body, and it would be beforehand, is very peculiar, to say the least. Why that letter would exist. I make note to Bertolino in my texts. It's not very common for that type of correspondence to exist between a mother and a son, let alone a letter to be written altogether. Letters these days are rare in and of themselves. When was the last time you received or wrote a letter to or from your son? It's still the year is 2022, and most of the correspondence that we have, even between loved ones, is usually via text message or email or in person. However, this is a handwritten letter, or as we understand, I do not know if it's handwritten. I don't want to misspeak, but we understand it's a letter that exists between mother and son. So why would that letter exist before Brian and Gabby's trip is curious in and of itself. I respond to Bertolino by saying, can you share the letter with me so that I can report on it accurately? He responds, I have the letter in question, but its contents are personal between a mother and a son. The letter has nothing to do with this case. Think it through. Do you really think such a sentiment would be casually let go by the FBI if what Pat Reilly wants you to think were true? It's sensationalism to bolster his case, and you're playing right into it. Text from Stephen Bertolino, again, this Friday, December 30th. Now, this, of course, has been reported on by other outlets as well. I do not know if the correspondence between Bertolino and others is the same. I, of course, have been reporting on this story from day one and will continue to do so. So I do not know the exact contents of the letter, and there has been nothing that I can report to verify the date in which it is written, because Bertolino is claiming that the letter predates the trip, the cross-country trip between with Brian and Gabby. So he does bring up a very good point, however. He says, do you really think such a sentiment would be casually let go by the FBI if what Pat Reilly wants you to think were true? So if there is this letter that references a shovel and burying Gabby's body, what Bertolino is saying is, isn't that enough? Why would the FBI just let that go? Why would the FBI treat that as just personal correspondence between mother and son and release that back to his clients, the Laundries? It is a very good question. Now, if the letter does in fact make a direct reference to a shovel and a body and burying of a body, it might not have the level of specifics necessary for the FBI to proceed with charges. Again, we don't know the exact contents of this letter, And Bertolino is saying that it predates the trip. All we know is, again, I'm going to read it here from the document, and the document reads, this request would certainly also include the note that Roberta Laundrie wrote to Brian Laundrie, which she offered to bring a shovel to help bury the body. I then continued to talk with Steve about the current status of the letter, because this letter is now at the center of a lawsuit. And where this letter is of course important to A, to make sure it hasn't been destroyed, and B, to make sure that it's been taken care of. And he says, the FBI gave it to me and I still have it. Don't get caught up in the hype. I respond, if the letter makes specific reference to a shovel and a body, as Pat Reilly claims, that's noteworthy correspondence given the circumstances. Not sure you, me, or the average mom writes to their children about shovels and bodies. He responds, context is everything. And then I invited him to come on this live stream tonight. I said, would you like to come on and provide a defense for your clients in this regard? You have an open invitation. He says, maybe someday when the lawsuits are resolved, and he wished me a happy new year. So Stephen Bertolino declining our request to come on and explain this a little bit more thoroughly. But look, if there is this specific mention, we don't have this letter. We are going based off of Pat Reilly. We're going based off of his claim that, his claim of the contents of this letter. But he is claiming that this letter makes specific reference to a shovel, to a body, and burying a body, and it's from Roberta Laundrie to her son. So I, again, gave the opportunity for Mr. Bertolino to come on tonight. I have tried to reach out to Pat Reilly. This is a very difficult time of year to get a hold of anybody. So just the fact that we were able to get through to Mr. Bertolino, given that it's the night before New Year's Eve, I think that is, I appreciate him being able to get back to us and provide us with some comment. We have not yet heard from Pat Reilly, at least in advance of this live stream. Pat might be watching. If you are, Pat, if there's others watching connected to this story, my phone is on. Feel free to text me. I am trying to just get to the bottom of this and also just report this as accurately as possible. But the burn after you read this letter has been an object of fascination online, people wanting to know what was inside of it. And there's a chance that there's more to it that we still don't know at this time. You see there, we have the snapshots of the notebook where Brian Laundrie wrote his confession and what, in his words, happened to Gabby Petito, and a little bit as to what was going on inside of his mind before he ended his life with a self-inflicted gunshot wound in Myakkahatchee in the Carlton Reserve. However, the contents of the letter, the burn after you read letter, snapshots of it. I even asked Bertolino for a transcription just so that we can report on it accurately. All we have is this claim by Petito and Schmidt attorney Pat Reilly. You can read more on this story right now by clicking on the link in the description on this video. It'll take you over to my report on WFLA.com, the WFLA app. In the meantime, what we're going to do is we're going to stay here on live stream, and I'm going to be answering your questions as we do here for the next, I would say, 10 to 15 minutes. I will do my very best here in WFLA Now Stream Center to answer as many questions as possible. Also, to give you a voice wherever you're watching from. You might have a thought about this. You might point out something that maybe I haven't thought of. I'm very open to the comment section. A lot of reporters online. Well, look, I'm very much willing to listen to you and bring in your comments, bring in your questions, and I want to hear from you. So if you would like to join us here on WFLA Now, it's very simple. Just use hashtag HeyJB with your question or your comment, and I can animate it on screen, and I will look for those across Facebook Live, YouTube Live, as well as Twitter as well. I don't know why I said it like that. It's been a long day. Of course, we're still reporting on what's going on in Moscow, Idaho. That was, of course, the massive news earlier on today with, of course, the arrest of a 28-year-old Pennsylvania student pursuing his doctorate from Washington State University. We also have coverage on that story on WFLA.com, the WFLA app. This is a great question from Maddie. We'll start here. Maddie wants to know, hashtag HeyJB, why was this letter written? And I can only point to what Bertolino texted me, and he says, I have the letter in question, but its contents are personal between a mother and a son. So it is a letter that has a personal meaning of some kind for Roberta Laundrie. It is why it's been returned. It's interesting that the letter is in the possession of Stephen Bertolino. It's not all that interesting, but it's certainly noteworthy that the letter, if it contains a personal correspondence from Roberta to Brian, and it's not with Roberta, it's with her attorney, Stephen Bertolino. And again, if Bertolino is continuing to have possession of that letter, it's likely to be in East Islip, New York, that's out on Long Island. So why exactly, what was the purpose of the letter? We only have Bertolino and Reilly's statements to go by, Maddie. I hope that, look, here's the thing. August 2023 is when the lawsuit is scheduled between the two. You saw the pretrial hearing there. There's Nicole Schmidt, Joe Petito. There's Pat Reilly, Matthew Luca there on the right. This was earlier this year. And so there's going to be more pretrial hearings, and then the actual jury trial itself is scheduled for August 2023, although I will caution, legal friends of mine, including Peter Tragos, who was on earlier, have extreme doubt due to the backlog of court cases, particularly in Sarasota County Circuit Court. We might not have it in August, and there is an outside chance that we might not actually have this go to trial this summer or even this year, or as far as 2023. We're hopeful, because we always want a speedy trial. We always want answers. We always want the truth. However, as of right now, if you believe Peter and if you believe other lawyers in the Tampa Bay area, things are pretty backlogged right now, and there's a chance that we do not have a jury trial in 2023. Let's see here. Beth, #HeyJB, regarding GP Gabby Petito, how could the mother offer a shovel if she was miles and miles away? How would the alleged offer a shovel get to him? This is also a good question, and it all pertains to when this letter was written. The contents of this letter and what is actually stated in the letter between Roberta and Brian is as important as the date in which it was written, because where it falls on the timeline is important. So, look, there's a lot of different dates at play here, but let's not forget that there's the timeline when Brian returns home before he goes out on his hike into the Carlton Reserve. There's the timeline, of course, when they went to Fort DeSoto on the camping trip in Pinellas County. There are all these different windows of time when this letter, there's also, look, Stephen Bertolino is alleging that the letter predates the trip altogether. And if that is his claim, that has to be on the table, of course, as a possible scenario. There's going to be there. I know our audience is going to, have a massive eye roll at that notion. But that is the claim from the other side, saying that this letter predates the cross-country trip in the white van. So a whole lot of different, when this letter was written, we know the letter exists. We know it is a tangible piece of evidence in this case, and that it exists between Roberta and Brian, and that it still exists. According to Bertolino, it still exists to this day. It has not been destroyed. It still exists. The contents of it are so important, but also so important is the date in which it is written. And I think by now, it's very likely we would know the date if the letter was dated. If the letter has a date, it is a big look here at the particular date in which it was written. But based on what I have learned based on this letter up until this point, there is no concrete date, a timestamp of any kind on the letter itself. Look, Crazy Linda, #HeyJB. Do you think this was planned when Brian flew home 2 weeks before he killed Gabby? Look, that is also a portion of the timeline. When Brian, in mid-August, flew home to Florida only to return to the cross-country trip between he and his fiancée, Gabby Petito. That is another moment in the timeline, and whether this has any correlation with that flight and that trip home and then return home, it's going to be very interesting to see. I think that my first question to, excuse me, to Pat Reilly would be, when do you and your clients believe this letter was written? Pat, if you're watching, probably not. It's the night before New Year's Eve, but if you're watching, again, my phone is on. Please feel free to text me. I know that those attached to this story, those who are directly connected to it, have watched our live streams in the past and will text me during these live streams. This is, again, a part of interactive journalism. This is something that we do routinely here at WFLA. White Wolf, hashtag HeyJB, do you think future courtroom activity will be live streamed? Very interesting question. As of right now, we have courtroom access in Sarasota County Court. This lawsuit continues to move forward in Sarasota County Circuit Court. And unless there's a massive, bizarre turn of events, we will still have courtroom access. And we will still be able to take you to these pretrial hearings and then, of course, to the jury trial itself whenever it does, in fact, happen, scheduled for August of 2023. Sean wants to know, do you think this new information about a shovel being offered to bury Gabby is going to be brought up in court next year if the trial happens? Absolutely. It's part of the discovery process. It is a document that they are seeking be brought to light. I'm talking, of course, about Pat Reilly. So it would be very much at the center of some of the key evidence in this case, where it fits in to the narrative and where it fits into the argument that the Laundries are alleged to be guilty of intentional infliction of emotional distress. Only really Pat Reilly knows if this is his, the significant number one, type A type of evidence, or if this is just part of a gathering of evidence that they are going to present to prove their case. Only he knows. That is part of the legal strategy that I'm sure has been coming together over the last weeks, last several months, and will continue into this year. So Rocky wants to know, hashtag HeyJB, if this letter does exist, isn't this premeditated and charges should be for the Laundries? It depends on the date. It's premeditated if it and also too, we don't know the contents of it, and we don't know how specific that it is. Stephen Bertolino is saying, of course, pointing to this not being the big deal that Pat Reilly is making it out to be. And of course, this is the battle of rhetoric that we have between these two attorneys as some of these storylines, permeate to the surface before the actual trial starts, whenever it does, in fact, start, hopefully later this year. But it depends on the date, Rocky. It really does. Ellie, hashtag HeyJB, do you think this letter will be released for the public to see? Hello from England. If it proceeds to jury trial, if it's permitted as evidence in that trial, absolutely. And, this is an interesting too. Christy wants to know, hey, JB, doesn't the Laundrie's attorney have to give the Petito attorney a copy of the letter since it's evidence? I believe, I remember asking this to Pat. Look, the contents of the letter are very much well known on the Petito and Schmidt side. And what kind of copy, if they have a copy, that's something I'll have to clarify. If it's a transcript of the words in that letter, if it is if it's photo evidence, that of course is something I'm going to have to review and check in on. This is Wes, hashtag HeyJB. If these allegations are true in civil court, is it possible the police could file criminal later on? Look, this evidence was in the possession of the FBI, conducting an extremely thorough investigation. They had this evidence. This was theirs for months. And if they could use this evidence to file charges, and they have evidence that a crime was committed, of course they're going to proceed with charges. But them, to Bertolino's point, them not proceeding with criminal charges and releasing the letter back to Bertolino's clients, the Laundries, is indicative of the fact that this letter doesn't contain any direct evidence that a crime was committed. Otherwise, the FBI would have proceeded with charges. So it's kind of interesting because the letter might exist in a gray area between that would fall somewhere underneath the criteria necessary for criminal charges to be filed. Oh, Cheryl wants to know, hashtag, hey, JB, hey, Masa. Masa is, I am one of the few people at WFLA tonight. The newsroom is out that way, and I can tell you that a lot of folks are home right now, spending time with their loved ones, their family, because tomorrow is New Year's Eve. We say farewell to 2022. We say hello to 2023. We can only hope that these years get better ever since the pandemic, because I'm very hopeful. I would like to think that 2023, I'm a glass half full kind of guy. I would love for 2023 to be a bounce back year. Wouldn't it be great if we could start to celebrate more and start to shake our heads less at the the day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month occurrences in this country? I would like to report on more positive news, and hopefully 2023 is a better year for all of us. To wherever you're watching from, I'm hoping that you and your family experience a great 2023, and I hope it's better than your 2022. I think I said one too many 20s in there. It's a lot of 20s now. 2022 going into 2023, a lot of 20s. Another couple of minutes and a couple of other final questions and comments on the live stream. Mystical, hashtag HAB, do you think they didn't pursue a charge with a deal to show them where Brian was? I don't think that there's an intersect there, but I can't say. I can't speak to the inner workings of the FBI, but Laura P, hashtag AJB, is it possible that the Laundries would be required to tell the court their account of the camping trip that they took when Brian came back without Gabby? The Fort DeSoto camping trip. Look, so it might even be sooner than that, Laura, because we have depositions that are scheduled. Now, the depositions are scheduled for January. I believe it's January 23rd or 4th. It's the third week of January. And the depositions are going to be the first time that Gabby Petito's parents and Brian Laundrie's parents are in the same room at the same time, and with the ability for one side to ask questions to the other. Joe Petito, Nicole Schmidt will be on one end of the table, and we've got Brian Laundrie's parents, Chris and Roberta, on the other end. Can you imagine how tense it is going to be in that room when they are the four of them, the four parents, are there at the same time, and it's with both of their children dead and a lawsuit, a massive lawsuit separating the two of them, and the expectation that that Chris and Roberta Laundrie are going to answer questions in this deposition process, the depo process. So that is when the Petitos and Schmidts might get answers for the very first time directly from the mouths of Chris and Roberta Laundrie. And so the Fort DeSoto camping trip, I've already been told by Pat Reilly, will be part of the deposition questioning. No doubt. 1,000,000%. I'm sure the depositions will be long and arduous with a lot of questions. And how much Chris and Roberta Laundrie divulged during this process is really only something they and their legal representation, Matt Luca, Steve Bertolino, know. Also, talking about Steve Bertolino for a second, he might be added as a defendant. The Laundries received a motion, and Pat Reilly has filed to add Steve Bertolino as a third defendant on this lawsuit. That is going to be heard in January, I believe, as well. I have to check my dates. A lot of dates on the calendar. A couple of final questions and comments. Kim Wade, will the depositions be live? No, that is not something that happens normally in a courtroom setting. That is something that is usually handled on in a separate arena, if you will. And so they will not be live. They will be behind closed doors. But of course, they will keep accurate record, and the Q&A process of the depositions will be entered into the record for this jury trial between, again, the Petitos and Schmidts and the Laundries themselves. There's differing opinions, Gino, on whether or not the Laundries are able to invoke their Fifth Amendment rights, given it's a civil trial. I have heard that there's differing legal opinions as to Can they just invoke their Fifth Amendment rights to not answer a question? I've heard from different people, different attorneys, as to whether or not what Fifth Amendment rights, given it being a civil trial and given the jurisdiction, what's Fifth Amendment rights Chris and Roberta Laundrie have, and we're still trying to ascertain as to whether or not they're going to be forced to answer a question. But as a reminder, just about every question that you get asked, you could excuse me, you could respond, I don't know, or I don't remember. So how forthcoming they are is going to be a key storyline of the depositions. Let's go over to Facebook Live and hone in on Facebook Live for a second. Lisa wants to know, #HeyJB, do you think the Laundries will speak or the lawyer will speak? It's going to be a combination of a bunch. But listen, the questions are going to be directed to Chris and Roberta Laundrie, and they're going to be the ones who are going to be asked to respond. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us here on WFLA Now. Really appreciate some very kind comments have come in. This has been a very long day of live streaming. We of course, started it this afternoon with the news that an arrest has been made, and I'll take you live. This is actually live from the residence of the 28-year-old suspect arrested in the Idaho student murders, that, of course, being Brian Koberger, PhD student at Washington State University. That's how we began our day. We end our day talking about developments in the lawsuit filed from Gabby Petito's parents against Brian Laundrie's parents. And so we will, of course, I've said this before and I'll say it again, these stories that matter so very much to you, this is likely, more than likely, though I don't want to jinx myself, this very well could be our final live stream of 2022. It is my pledge to you that we cover the stories that you really, really want to hear more about. And I, as an interactive journalist, I am always paying very close attention to the stories that you want us to cover. I get stories submitted to me via direct message all the time. And as I ask more and more questions, and as far as our process, I let you know as to whether or not we're going to be covering that story. And there's, of course, a big process that goes on behind the scenes determining the stories that we cover. But we really want to dedicate these live streams to stories that you really want to receive this version of coverage, this interactive coverage. There are so many stories out there where the sleuthing and the online chatter and all the speculation and the rumor mill goes into overdrive, and we can be a resource for you as to keeping the train on the tracks, as I normally say, and staying rooted in reality. That is our commitment here, and that is really the core message, the core foundation, the mission statement, if you will, behind WFLA Now, behind #HeyJB, is to always stay credible and present you with not just facts, but also reliable answers when it comes to the questions that you're asking online, because we know if we're not going to answer your question, someone else is going to, and we don't know necessarily if you're going to be, steered in the right direction as to the correct answer and the correct narrative surrounding a story. So we try to provide facts and context and explanation, and we try to do so through our live streaming platform here, WFLA Now. So that's our commitment here to you, is that we're always going to be paying attention to what you have to say. We bring your comments on screen for that very reason. We want to hear from you. We want to bring in your comments. And there are some times where you guys are a step ahead of us, and we bring in a tweet, we bring in a question, we bring in a claim, and we say this is either fact or fiction or that gray area between where we just don't know at that stage in the process. So I really appreciate, this is a heartfelt thank you as we prepare for this to be the final live stream of the year. This is a heartfelt thank you from me to all of you watching wherever you're watching from. We have people joining us from Tampa Bay, people joining us from Florida, people joining us from the United States, people joining us from around the world. And let's end out our live stream by asking our commenters, Facebook Live, YouTube Live, where are you watching from? I would like to just kind of give a few of you some shout outs and thank you for watching, and thank you for joining us in this in the interactive journalism venture that we're on here at WFLA Now. And if I can give you a shout out and just acknowledge where you're watching from, and whether you're you're here in the United States, or whether you're joining us from abroad, internationally, across the Atlantic, across the Pacific, I would just like to just shout out some names and say thank you for. We can't do this without people watching and people commenting and people talking with me and wanting to be part of this conversation. So I'd like to just thank some folks. Kristen from Maryland, Angela's joining us, or I think it's Ange Marie from Los Angeles, Heather from Indiana, Cindy's from Ohio, Barbie's from Ohio, Michelle Widener, our wonderful chief YouTube moderator. Michelle, thank you for all that you do, joining us from Chicago, Illinois. We've got Laura, who is joining us from the UK, Tammy from Northwest Florida, Angel Jackson is from Minnesota, Manny Hammonds from New Mexico, Kim Wade from Merritt Island, Florida. Emily is joining us from the Bronx. I just got back from seeing some family in Brooklyn and on Long Island in New York. Maddie is joining us from Melbourne, Australia. How about that? Maddie, thanks so much for joining us. Aluminum is joining us from Keshena, Wisconsin. Tam is joining us from the Netherlands. How about that? That's awesome to see. Belisla is joining us from Canada. Kathy from New Jersey. Benji from London. A lot of folks that are joining us. And again, this is not all news stations do this as far as interacting with you live during our news coverage. In fact, there are some media organizations that look at me and think of me as a crackpot, crazy person, because I interact with you live during our news coverage. I can assure you I'm not crazy. I can assure you I'm not a crackpot. I'm just trying to bring people, the people that watch our streams, and just trying to bring you guys into the conversation. I'm so grateful that we have people that watch us as much as they do. So wherever you're watching from, this is a heartfelt, from the WFLA Now Stream Center, this is a heartfelt thank you. And sending you my very, very best, all my blessings in the world, to you and your family, to hopefully that you had an excellent 2022, and hopefully you'll have an even better 2023. WFLA Now will be back in 2023. We will stay very much rooted in reality and stay very much connected to the big stories. I'm talking about, of course, Idaho. I'm talking about Gabby Petito, Brian Laundrie, Cassie Carley, Harmony Montgomery, so many other massive stories that we have covered over the course of this year. We will continue to do so. Look, the Johnny Depp, Amber Heard trial was a massive story this year. What happened, the Wisconsin Christmas parade attack trial was massive. Parkland's trial was massive. There's so many stories that we have covered and will continue to cover here on live stream. But we can't do it without you, and that is why I'm sending you my very, very heartfelt thank you and warm and loving wishes to wherever you are watching from. You can, of course, a big way that you can show your support for what we do here at WFLA Now, not just to watch, but to follow me on social media. Please give me a follow, and I'm always responding to messages, to DMs on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter as well. Those three platforms, and I will tease some really big, exciting things on TikTok coming in 2023. We couldn't be more excited to be doing some really forward-thinking work as far as TikTok and being a source of fact-based journalism, rooted in reality journalism on TikTok, a platform that you never know what you're going to find on TikTok. So again, thank you so much for joining us. The very latest on this story, you can find it on WFLA.com, the WFLA app. I'll see you on my WFLA JB social media accounts. And again, one last time, Happy New Year, folks, and we'll see you in 2023.